Hey guys, Ponce here on the PBE, here to talk to you guys about a nerf to Skirmisher Saber, specifically the challenging Smite portion of it. Also, there's a double colon after challenging Smite. Maybe that typo will get fixed. But anyway, what they've done is, as it reads here, Smite can be cast on enemy champions, marking them for 4 seconds. You guys might remember it used to be 6 seconds, or rather it currently is on live. Now it's down to 4 seconds. Now, this is coming from my perspective as a top laner, like mainly a top lane player, as opposed to a jungler. I'm going to assume this is probably more has to do with people taking challenging Smite top lane, since, you know, it's kind of used against champions consistently, rather than a jungle-focused thing. That's my guess. I could be wrong, but, such is the danger when you're coming from a very specific sort of mindset and sort of set of biases. But I just kind of wanted to also discuss the sort of general balance implications of this change, because it isn't, like, on the surface the biggest thing ever, but it made you think about some interesting things. Namely, if it is being nerfed for a sort of a top lane kind of context, is that buff or nerf warranted? Now, you might remember they've also nerfed, what's that item called? The Cinderhulk, of course. So Cinderhulk does a lot less damage now, and in the past they also nerfed its HP stuff a bit too, and I think they increased its cost. But yeah, that's the other thing. Like, you can't build the skirmishing saber into a really effective top lane Cinderhulk kind of thing anymore. Now, that's sort of interesting, because I've actually faced the whole, as a top lane, obviously I've faced the challenging Smite a number of times, and personally speaking, I've never found it an issue. Now, personal sort of anecdotal evidence is not exactly the most valuable thing. And sort of the context I play from is different from a lot of people. Typically, I think probably what sort of exacerbated the whole challenging Smite issue was the fact that the whole tank meta thing existed at the time as well, or still exists, I suppose. And typically that's going to have a sort of harder time against people who can sort of run around and quickly farm the jungle, and then run back in the lane, and then sort of negate any chance at sort of hard engagements with the skirmisher saber, and also deal true damage to the person. So, it's more effective as sort of slower kind of lumbering types that can't burst you down. Now, in my experience, since I don't pay attention to the quote-unquote meta at all, and I just play the same damn stuff all the time, regardless of what anyone else is doing, I have a very aggressive sort of offensive sort of carry top laner mindset. I would just sort of, poke, and then go in for an all big and all trade fight. Or, if the person used the challenging Smite on me, I just back off for the 6 seconds and then go back in. It's a very easy thing to see coming. Now, what I also have to consider at the same time, though, is that maybe the people with the challenging Smite have been facing were somewhat inexperienced with it, and they're just trying to, like, ape what they were seeing on, LCS streams or whatever. Because I did notice that they would just kind of spam it whenever it was up and try and go in every single time. It's like, oh, you use it, I just back off for 6 seconds and I kill you, kind of thing. And it's not exactly the strongest lane start ever. You have to keep in mind that you need to buy Hunter's Machete, which is an awful item to start with if you're going into lane. You'll just get bullied around, which I exploited fairly hard. And then you have to upgrade it into Skirmisher Saber. And now, to make matters worse for you, you have to upgrade it into, well, mostly people have been upgrading it to Cinderhulk, and Cinderhulk isn't efficient anymore, so you have that as well. Now, I do realize people tend to take it with teleport, and you could also do a jungle camp really quickly with the Smite, and then teleport back in the lane, or maybe, depending on who you are, not even have to teleport and just come back in a little bit damaged. Now, that certainly is a valid strategy, but I think one thing people often would forget is that when you're taking a camp, depending on who your jungler is and how fast they do routes and where they start and stuff, it actually does kind of screw them over. You do need to keep that in mind, that it does mess up their initial route, because even if they get there and the thing is respawned, it's stronger. They take more damage. So, I mean, in a sense, you're sort of putting your jungler behind, to varying degrees. Sometimes not so much, sometimes a bit more, to sort of get you ahead, or not even ahead, but just like to somewhat negate the fact that you're starting with Hunter's Machete, if you're doing the Hunter's Machete start, obviously. And aside from that, it always felt kind of weird playing against these Smite top laners. Like, it was almost like they had kind of this weird PvE mentality going into it, and they wouldn't try and fight you so much as like look for opportunities to clear out your jungle. And then once you see that happen, you're just like, I'm gonna go clear out my jungle in advance, after I've killed you, because your laning isn't quite as good, at least not in terms of the trades I like to do. Put an advanced ward down here or something, watch you come to try and kill the Krugs that are not actually there anymore, and then jump on you and then chunk you down and you gotta leave, kind of thing. So I mean, there definitely were ways to deal with it, at least in my experience. So whether or not from a top lane perspective this nerf was warranted, I don't know. But then again, the game isn't played by everyone the way I play it. So, your experiences are going to vary. And I do realize it probably is a very frustrating thing to play against. But then again, I do also see the opposite sort of perspective, or not necessarily opposite, but there's also this perspective that Riot is gutting something sort of an alternative playstyle, just because quote unquote they don't like it or whatever. But then you can also see the perspective that it's not exactly a very healthy playstyle either. It's kind of, in my experience, it's been sort of a very almost a counter meta strategy, but at the same time, like, yeah, it had a very sort of PvE-ish focus to it, and it just sort of felt kind of lame. Anyway, those are my thoughts on it. I realize I don't come to any kind of conclusion, but I just thought I'd sort of ramble on a bit and sort of share the various sort of facets surrounding, balance and my thoughts on it and stuff like that. Anyway, that's Riot's decision to come and make conclusions, not mine. I don't get paid for that. All right, I'll see you guys around. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.